wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey, everyone. It is the Thursday morning surgical bullpen, and I am Dr. Toker, your friendly neighborhood colorectal surgeon. Shout out to my daughter Maria, who made me a little morning jingle. I promised I will use it like on everything. Y'all will get tired of it, but I like it. It's catchy. Welcome, and as per usual, if you are listening on Spotify, the slides that I present will be present on our website. If you go to dranatoker.com/services, you will see the podcast PDFs or the bullpen PDFs. And this one is called Fear Zonulin, Not Carbohydrates, and it's a topic that I've been sort of nibbling about with some of these other lectures. The importance of this molecule that many of you may have not heard of prior to now. And so I think it's an important thing for us to share on a Thursday morning. Once again, the podcast is sponsored by a company called Super Patch. And I like to use these podcasts to educate the population on a disease process that I think they should know about, and then how I would use this technology to support people who may be suffering from deficiencies or conditions that involve the topic of the day. So today's topic is zonulin, and I know you've never heard of it, but I promise you it involves you. I promise you now. So real quick before we get started, in all fairness to our sponsors and in light of the craziness that I have with social media. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. Can we do some housekeeping real quick? I have hired a security team. I know, it sounds so fancy, right? Apparently, at some point in time, about 2 months ago, we suffered a little bit of a bot attack. And I've talked about the bots in the past. I did not realize how bad it was. And so this team is going to come in and sort of extract all these fake accounts from the Instagram. And by doing so, it does seem to improve the search engine algorithm for Instagram. And it will help me get my message out to the masses. Now, my message is popular to the masses, but maybe not to the pharmaceutical industry, which stands to lose a lot of money if we keep people healthy. But I took an oath. I mean, my mission is to keep people healthy. So we're going to stay true to my oath and hope somehow that I can combat the big money interests. One of the ways that I do that is through a product called Super Patch, and you may have heard me talk about this in the past. It is a patch that contains no medicine. I know, you'll read the ingredients and there are none. And so I will get occasionally emails and messages on they won't disclose the ingredient list. Well, that is because there is no ingredient. This doesn't work in an absorption of an ingredient into your skin. That's part of what makes it so unique. And this needs to be thought of as a technology, not a supplement. So think of it more as an ACE wrap or a Band-Aid as opposed to an aspirin or a vitamin. It's probably the best way to categorize things. In life, multiple approaches to any problem is always the best approach. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so they say. So Super Patch is one of those. I love cats, by the way. Please don't get triggered because I just said that. It's just a euphemism. I've always had cats. I love them. They're awesome. Would never, ever harm a cat. It's just to say. Anyways, so it is a different approach. It's an add-on approach that I like, and I'll explain real quick how it works. Basically, Nobel Prize-winning science discovery, probably about a decade to 15 years ago, was that the skin itself, we know, has sensation, but we were not aware of how intricate that sensation is. Things that you don't think of as being a sensation are still sending signals through the autonomic nervous system to your brain. And some of those signals are very pleasing to the brain and will help your brain enter into sort of a calmative or homeostasis baseline as a result of a texture that is felt by the skin. When you apply this texture to your skin, depending on which one you're applying, so each neurologic system in your brain, I want you to think of it as a different sound album track. Back in the old days when you got a big album, it had 12 tracks on it or whatever, and each neurologic system is basically a track on that album. And so each one of these packages is going to be labeled a different name because it's tickling a different album track, for lack of better words, is playing a different song. And if you combine these patches with environmental changes in your diet, supplements, and the whatnot, you will find great improvement in your overall condition. These do not cure things, but they just stabilize your body while your body tries to cure things. If you think of it in terms of the album, the patches are like the actual record itself. Your skin is essentially the needle. The nerves are the wires coming from that needle going into the amp and the processing area. And then the amp and the speaker area are basically your brain. And so when that needle hits that track, a certain part of your brain will spit out the song that we're looking for. And so that's sort of how these patches work. So no, there's no medicine on them. And I find the technology is absolutely fascinating. The owner of the company, the inventor, is an uber genius. I don't think he would ever say that out loud, but those of us who know him know that to be true. He's a fascinating fellow. I do encourage everyone to follow their website and their social media channels because they'll talk more about how the technology works. My role in life as a doctor is to explain to patients and other healthcare providers how these patches would fall in line with a treatment regimen, much like I might give crutches to a trauma person who broke their ankle. If I'm operating on you, I'm going to suggest these patches as sort of a crutch-like phenomenon to help your body heal. I hope that explains that. And we'll go over how I use that for digestive health in a few minutes. We've talked about a lot of these concepts independently in other lectures, so I'm hoping if you followed along that you retain some of this information. If not, shame on me for not explaining it well enough. So we're going to go over it again because repetition is the key to learning, so I understand. The intestinal tube is technically outside of your body, and it is a multiple layered tube that is muscular, that squeezes. Now, that muscular squeeze only propels things. It doesn't help you absorb anything. To absorb the contents contained therein, you need a very special lining called the endothelium. It is one cell layer thick, and it is all that stands between the sterile part of your body and a poo-filled tube, right? So it's like wearing rubber gloves when you clean the toilet. There's like a thin layer between you and sewage, right? So you really hope there's no hole in that glove. Okay, so the endothelium is the same thing. It controls the absorption, either passively or actively absorbing nutrients and water and salt. And this occurs along the length of the intestinal tract. There are specialty cells along the way, but today we're talking more about the majority of the cells fall into this endothelial category. Now, the cells of the lining of the intestinal tract, whether they're specialty cells or the endothelial cells themselves, are kind of glued to each other, much like the mosaic that you can see here, where there's grout around each one of those little cells. And grout implies that it's glue that's impervious and never moves, and that's not quite accurate. The tight junctions between the cells allow for communication between the cells. They can open and close like a sliding glass window, and they can slightly separate from each other like a sliding glass window as well. So they can open in between the cells, so they can, like cell A can talk to cell B. But as it turns out, there are some molecules that will kind of separate the cells completely. So now, like, there's a gap in between these two cells. When there's a gap in between these two cells, things sort of rush in. If you have a huge swath of cells that die because of infection or a noxious chemical, then all of a sudden, with cell death, you've got vast exposure of open space. When you have even a tiny little space or a vast swath of open space, the floodgates are open at this moment. Anything can get in there. I mean, you can get the poop gets in there, which is undigested food. It is bacteria. It is the toxins from that bacteria. It's your own digestive enzymes. Yes, amino acids and sugar, but also acid from your stomach and that sort of thing all get into this space that is not accustomed to seeing that sort of thing. That is supposed to be sterile. And understandably, it's, 100 microns deep to the lining of the intestine. So it's right there. It's not accustomed to seeing this stuff. This sparks an inflammatory response and can set you up for a number of problems, including autoimmune diseases, hyperinflammation that can lead to blood sugar problems, cholesterol problems, high blood pressure, can lead to sleeping disorders, personality disorders, Alzheimer's, etc. So when you have even the slightest little of the tight junctions over time, the damage can be cumulative and add up. Now, your body does have an ability to mop up small little transient leaks in this way, like little pinholes. They can get patched pretty easily. But when you have a lot of this going on chronically all day long, your body just cannot keep up. So that brings us to the topic of the day. So the title of our program was Don't Fear Carbohydrates, Fear Zonulin. So we talk a lot about elevated blood sugar. We did, I guess, 2 weeks ago. Chronically elevated blood sugar leads to a lot of different diseases, including Alzheimer's and high blood pressure and heart disease and obesity, etc. And because of that association, which has been known for quite some time, people are scared to eat a piece of fruit. The reality is not your fruit that's causing this problem, unless you're eating fruit all day long. But if you're eating 1 to 2 servings of fruit per day, fruit is not your problem. The problem is going to come down to a molecule called zonulin. Now, zonulin is made by your body. For lack of better words, it is the key to that sliding glass door. When zonulin is present, those little tight junctions are no longer so tight. They loosen up. Okay, and so that key loosens up the tight junctions. When the zonulin goes away, because it will decay, when it goes away, the tight junctions close up again. So in this way, the effects of zonulin are very, very transient. It took a very long time to find this molecule. It was found in celiac patients. And of course, they have a lot of zonulin floating around. They are really inflamed and super sick. If you've ever known anybody who has newly diagnosed celiac disease and is just eating kind of normal food, doesn't realize the dietary restrictions, they are in a hot mess, right? And it's because they have so much zonulin. This is a genetic issue. Some people will contain gene mutations that allow for a lot of zonulin. If both of the genes in your body for this molecule are sort of like the hyperactive kind, boom, you've got celiac. And then there's gradations along the pathway, but trust me, you make this protein. They think all mammals do, and so far every mammal they've tested has made this protein. So what the hell would be the purpose of this protein? And to be honest with you, not 100% sure we know. Every yin has a yang, okay? Zonulin is there for a reason. We're just not 100% sure what it is quite yet. Along the way, what they recognized is that zonulin negatively impacts blood sugar. So, in other words, if you have a lot of zonulin floating around, you are going to have a blood sugar problem. And as it turns out, the reason for that is that zonulin seems to shorten the half-life of a naturally created GLP-1. This is a hormone that is your body's version of Ozempic, for lack of better words. It's a very short-acting molecule. It's supposed to last for a couple of minutes. That's the molecule that controls the rate of speed, how fast your stomach empties, and it is the molecule that helps control the pancreas excretion of insulin to keep your blood sugar normal. This way, you fill when you're supposed to feel full and your blood sugar stays stable. Now, when you're making a lot of zonulin, that GLP-1 doesn't really last long, if it lasts at all. One of the findings along the way of figuring out the interaction of these molecules is this: if you have crazy elevations of your blood sugar, even though you're not diabetic, that can be the very early warning signal of an impending chronic disease. The person who discovered zonulin, who's heavy into this research, put together it's a great research paper that does a review of the literature, a review of his personal findings. And the title is essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, that zonulin is the cause for all known chronic human disease, including cancer. And so when the research scientist who is studying this believes this to be true, it does get my attention, because usually scientists don't make such bold claims. But every road so far has led to this molecule. Now, when it's in high presence, and we'll talk about what causes it in just a second, but let's recap. We talked about this last week. When it is in high present, it causes inflammation of the intestinal tract. It exposes your immune system to parts of your body that should not be exposed to the immune system. This stresses the healing capacity that's normally present in the intestinal tract. And the intestinal tract is accustomed to little breaks, and those cells only live 3 days. Your body is accustomed to cells disappearing and putting a new one there. It's whack-a-mole, and it's happening all the time, and your body can keep up. In the presence of the zonulin, it's like Lucy in the Chocolate Factory. There's too many pieces of chocolate going by, and you can't keep up with it. When this is happening, this sends all kinds of stress signals out. Your adrenal gland gets out of control. It can cause anxiety, depression, and that sort of mental pathway, and ultimately can lead to chronic disease, as your body just cannot seem to get a grasp on what's happening. We talked 2 weeks ago about elevated blood sugar, what it does. It stiffens proteins. Proteins are supposed to be flexible, they have to open and close, and they have to change their configuration. And when a glucose molecule sticks to it, it renders that particular protein non-functional. And so when your whole body gets riddled in these non-functional proteins, they kind of gum up the works. Now your metabolism doesn't work as well as it should. You start depositing fat in places and in ways that you can't get it off. Your metabolic rate might go down. Sugar in elevated quantities is a diuretic, so you wind up being chronically dehydrated. And now, in addition to everything else, there's low blood flow to the area, which makes the inflammation process even worse. So that's the dangers of zonulin in your system. Chronic zonulin is responsible for most, if not all, chronic diseases, because it's a death by 1,000 cuts. Your body just can't keep up with it, and you expend all of your energy chasing your tail, but the insult keeps coming. The hits just keep on coming. Okay, so what can we do about it? Okay, so the number one and easiest thing that you can do about it is what we do for our celiac patients, which is stop the stimulation of zonulin, which comes from wheat. And in particular, in wheat, there's a protein called gluten. And gluten is an anti-nutrient protein that has 2 components. One of them is named gliadin, and this gliadin protein is what tells your body to make zonulin. And again, that's going to be happening for a reason. And no one really has come up with like a positive, give me a positive reason that happens. The name zonulin is named after cholera toxin. To give you an idea, high doses of zonulin will give you cholera like symptoms. Okay. So, other things that can cause zonulin is a viral illness. COVID, if you ever had the intestinal form of COVID, you know what I'm talking about. Some people have long COVID where this is going on all the time, probably because they're spreading a spike protein because COVID is not a natural virus, but you didn't hear that from me. Inflammation because of toxins in your food, artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, herbicides, pesticides, all of these things cause inflammation that in the presence of inflammation allow the zonulin to pick up. Those are the causes, okay? The quick list of prevention, and we'll go through it real quick, is number one, you're going to avoid gluten. Honestly, there are some cross-reactive proteins. We'll talk about that in a minute. Taking a digestive enzyme, adjusting your microbiome so that it is in balance. Balance your autonomic nervous system. We'll talk about that in a second. And then, of course, detox. And I do need to do one of these weeks, I'm going to do a deep dive on the different kinds of detoxes. It's something I should probably know a little bit better. I'm a very typical allopathic doctor in that some of these alternative things, you know, we don't do a lot of, to be honest. Some of it has validity, some of it does not. So maybe we should cover that on a bullpen, not next week. Next week, we're going to talk about sleep. We'll do the detox stuff at a later time. Okay, gluten-free. Every lecture I give is most likely I'm going to talk about gluten-free. This is how important gluten-free is. Gluten is present in wheat, barley, and rye, for sure. The molecule in there is gluten. There are some other types of non-wheat grains, such as oats and quinoa, that can have crossover proteins. If you have celiac disease, you know this. There are some celiac patients who cannot actually tolerate oats and quinoa. Their symptoms return, and that's considered gluten-free. So if you're doing gluten-free, but you still have symptoms of you can't lose weight, you can't sleep at night, maybe your joints feel stiff or swollen, perhaps you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. If you've got a symptom of some sort, look to your diet and remove the oats, quinoa, and just go grain-free and see if that doesn't make an improvement, because it just might. Digestive enzymes, why would this work? Well, gluten is a protein. So is zonulin, a protein. There's a particular in third world countries that don't have, certain pharmaceutical companies barking at their door, use herbs and food as initial treatment. And bromelain is a natural protease enzyme that digests protein found in pineapples. And they do use this to treat patients with cholera. And because zonulin is very, very similar to cholera, that's how it's got its name, it stands to reason that a digestive enzyme containing bromelain just might help improve this pathway. Now, that is an empiric statement. I don't know that there is a paper that finds this to be true, but there are some pharmaceutical research going on, trials going on right now that involve enzymes specifically to break up both gluten and zonulin to see if it improves. I just don't know if those enzymes are based on bromelain or not. But hey, if you like pineapple, or you can just take a pill, we're about to launch a digestive product that will have bromelain in it because I find it to be an important additive. Okay, the microbiome balance. We talk about this a lot. I have a free program. You can find it on my website about the microbiome. It's called the Microbiome Two-Step, and it's involves two things: feed it what it wants and starve it of what it doesn't want. What does it want? It wants inulin and it wants something called phytophenols, which are anti-inflammatory. Phytophenols also in combination with inulin tell your microbiome to create short chain fatty acids, which helps heal the lining of the intestinal tract. Anything that is artificial, contains heavy metals, has herbicides and pesticides in it, you need to avoid. Stress, we've talked about that in an entire other 45-minute lecture. You got to avoid stress. We'll talk about a mitigation to that in just a moment. We just talked about gluten and pH. Your stomach should be acidic. That's important to the digestive process. When there is not acid in the stomach, it allows for an overgrowth of bacteria and allows for undigested food to hit further down in the intestinal tract and directly feed bacterial populations. And of course, they love that. You will not like that. That causes gas, bloat, and pain, and this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth kind of symptoms. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. Detox is too long of a topic to cover in such a short period of time. Just know, beware of everything that touches you, that you see, that you hear, that goes down your mouth or up your hiney, any part of your body. If it's making contact with a light wave, a sound wave, or an actual entity, it could get into your system and negatively affect the way you respond to your own physiology, right? So we should be doing things that promote cellular cleanse, whether it's through your liver, your skin, your kidneys, your gut. And I don't want to get too off the rails, but you can use light pathways and you can use homeopathic sound pathways to help detox as well. It's a pretty cool topic. And you know what? I might do that one with my daughter. Sound therapy, because she's a musician. She's a music producer. She finds the topic fascinating, and it would be fun to get an expert opinion on sound waves, and that is what she does for a living. So, okay, to the super patch and how I use it. This involves controlling your autonomic nervous system, and in particular, to avoid stress. I personally use a peace patch. I go nowhere without it. I've just started wearing a glucose monitor, 24-hour glucose monitor, and what I have found is that if I do not wear that peace patch, especially at night, oddly enough, I get cortisol. Usually you think of life as one cortisol spike. That's how I always understood it. That would happen at, let's say, 4 in the morning, right before you wake up for the morning. That's a normal thing. I have that spike every 2 hours all night long. And so when I wear a peace patch, it doesn't spike. You can still see the wave all night long, but it doesn't spike into the red. Now that's just me, because I'm very sensitive to stress and cortisol, and I'm 100% sure that's what's led to a lot of my medical issues, which is why I talk so much about stress. Stress will kill you. And that peace patch is a godsend to me and everyone I know who has used it. So it's like doing 8 hours of meditation within the 3 seconds that it takes for you to put on your skin. He does one for sleep, which helps also. If I do my REM patch, that keeps me from waking up in the middle of the night, and a peace patch, my overnight blood sugar, average blood sugar, is a good 12 points lower than it is if I sleep without it. That is what I've learned in the last 2 weeks of wearing a continuous glucose monitor, and I would have never believed it. Neither one of these patches are for blood sugar. This is for Anatoker, because I can't sleep and my cortisol is out of the control. And that stress is what's driving my blood sugar. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's going to work like that for you, but I use the patches is what I'm trying to say. Oh, my cows. I wish y'all could see my cows. It's early in the morning and they're taking their little stroll from the back of the property to the front, where it looks totally different. The grass tastes totally different, the front of the property. So in summary, and we may have set a land record on my conciseness. Look at that. Huh? I'm getting better. I don't know if I can be as entertaining in such a short period of time, but at least I got the information out to you. Our website is dranatoker.com. If you want to see the free resources, go to services, so slash services, and you will see all the free PDFs and so forth and so on. I do have a paid program called Gut Check, which will teach you about how the intestinal tract, the brain, the adrenal gland, and all your other organs are intimately tied together, which is why the advice for so many different illnesses starts with the same two or three pieces of advice, including gluten free and drink more water. And it's just because they're so tied together. Those are critical steps, almost no matter what your illness is. So, our program, Gut Check, will teach you that. I try to do, to the best of my ability, a 30-minute or so lecture. I've tried to do them live, but I struggle. I get so easily distracted that I'll forget about why I'm talking. So I can't have random strangers. Oh my gosh. And did y'all see, now I'm wasting time. Last week when my feed did not work, I so apologize to whoever it was that I did this to, but I decided to do a quick live, like from my phone while I'm scrambling on my computer. I had no makeup on. It was 6 in the morning. It's heinous. Okay. And I'm explaining, okay, my live is not working. Let me give you the 411 and I'll put up the real video later in the day. And among the comments, it was like, so and so wants to join. So now I saw that right as I said, I can't get my streaming thing to work. And I was thinking, because my audience, y'all are so kind to me. A lot of you guys are very supportive, and if I have a problem, y'all will pipe in with a, "Oh, have you tried such and such?" When it comes to technical stuff, I've had a lot of people help me with the ABCs of social media because I'm very new to it. And so I thought that was somebody who's gonna talk me through the process, and I click on it, and someone in the shower. Now, thankfully, you could not see that person. And I did end that stream, and then I deleted it. So you can't actually see evidence that that took place. But this is why I had this horrifically embarrassed look on my face when I started the second stream that I did save to Instagram. So I will never do that again. If I don't know who you are, I'm sorry, I can't welcome you onto my stream because I don't know what's going to happen. And it did not occur to me that's what was going to happen. Hi. So anyway, um, I will get better at it. And I think what I will do is try to start having guest speakers. In the meantime, next week, I hope you join me. We will talk about the importance of sleep, how that impacts gut health, how this haptic, tactile technology, this vibro tactile technology from Super Patch can help you with your sleep and with your stress and to improve the quality of your life. And we'll go over that next week. And then in the meantime, please do join us on YouTube and Rumble. Instagram has a new feature where even if you are a follower, if you don't hit a notification bell, it will stop populating my feed in your morning routine. And so please do take this opportunity to find that little bell at the top of my page. Click on my page, top of the bell at Instagram, and click a Rooney. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe and follow. But you can find all of these videos on this Instagram channel, but you can also find them on Rumble and YouTube. Rumble and YouTube have better little thumbnails and little blurbs that kind of explain what's going on. You'll find those under the live streams in those areas. In the meantime, y'all have a good week. Enjoy your weekend. And we will talk to you next time.